August is here, and that means that the weather and the election cycle are heating up. The best way to beat the heat and stay up to date on the latest news from the US election to international breaking headlines is to become a DSR member and gain access to additional content across our network, in addition to other exclusive benefits. Use code BEATTHEHEAT to get 50% off of your membership and sign up today at thedsrnetwork.com/buy. That's Beat the Heat at thedsrnetwork.com/buy. Now please enjoy the show.
This is the Daily Blast from the New Republic, produced and presented by the DSR Network. I'm your host, Greg Sargent. We've noticed a pattern with Donald Trump and his campaign. He keeps throwing his own advisors under the bus. The latest example of this is with the skirmishing between the Trump and Kamala Harris campaigns. First, Trump's campaign insisted the debate must have mics muted for the candidate who isn't speaking. Then Trump turned right around and said he's just fine with the mics being unmuted throughout. We think this gets at a larger dynamic. With Trump still uncertain how to get his footing against Harris, Trump is clearly starting to doubt that his own advisors have any idea what he should be doing against her right now. And that's a bad place for a campaign to be. Today we're talking about this with James Carville, the well-known Democratic strategist who has been through a few presidential debates in his time. Glad to have you on, James.
Well, thank you. And Greg, I think you hit the nail on the head. When you do this, as long as I have, you can just have a sense of what's going on. And I think I think there's real tension because some people are trying to get him to, talk about, quote, the issues, unquote, and other people are saying, let him be him. And Trump instinctively knows that if he tries to pivot or any of that nonsense, he's going to lose his core supporters. I mean, they have to be constantly fed a heap of misogyny and racism to stay in the camp. And I think Trump instinctively understands that, and he's not going to win this thing with women in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. I can tell you that. He's going to win it by, high turnout in Cambria County, Pennsylvania. And he knows that's his ticket to victory.
Well, and that was his ticket in 2016. It fell just short in 2020. In his mind, he won in 2020. Why would he change?
He's not. And what I like is they try to get him to leave that and go be more like Mitt Romney. And he knows if he does that, he's double fucked because they're not going to come out for Mitt Romney. And he's on this, and you have Susie and Chris and Bill Ackman or whatever the guy's name is, and they're trying to get him to move away from that. And then you have Corey and Roger Stone say, no, we don't do that.
Right.
And
right.
Trump, he has a great survival instinct. And then they have him trying to talk about, I'm the greatest president for women that ever lived. He's not going to win on that shit. Okay? He's not going to win on that. If he has it, his way is that he stimulates his turnout, I think. And I think he knows that at some visceral level.
Let me ask you about the debate for a second. The campaigns to catch people up are fighting over whether to duplicate the CNN debate format, which muted mics while the other person was speaking. The Harris camp wants open mics because the Biden thing didn't work out, and the Trump campaign said they want to keep the closed mic rules. But then at a presser Monday, Trump said, quote, it doesn't matter to me. I'd rather have it probably on. James, James, why do you think Trump's advisors don't want that?
I don't know. I think that Trump probably is trying to figure out whether he wants to debate or not. I think he will at the end because he's got to take a shot. It's in his interest to. And what Harris should say, I'll do a press conference or a, quote, sit-down interview. I don't know why this has become the gold standard. And say, I'll do it the morning after the debate. No debate, no press conference. I mean, and he's got a. I think I really like her chances in this debate. I really do, and I think Trump instinctively knows that. He's never won a debate. And if you look at all of his times in 2016, or you look at his debate in 2020, and she's very improved. I mean, surprisingly improved, and she's a trial lawyer. I mean, come on, she knows how to make a case. She showed that in an acceptance.
And she took down Biden himself at one debate, if you recall. I mean, she's clearly skilled at this. And I think if you're Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles, you mentioned them earlier, they're Trump's campaign managers, and you're watching that convention speech that she gave, you're worried about a debate against her because she knows how to talk to the middle of the country about him, right?
In the convention, they're having a hard time because they don't have Biden and they don't have, I hate the word, but I just use it because I'm cold to everything, woke shit. The Democrats have like moved way on from that. And you can almost see them whining that they want to run against DEI and they want to run against Biden. And none of that was talked about at the convention. And they are trying to recapture some fleeting moment of glory they think they had. It's not coming back, and they're smart enough to not let it come back.
I think you're getting at a really interesting point there, which is that they just sort of assumed that Harris is the queen of woke, right? She's from California liberal, very fluent in LGBTQ stuff, talks about abortion a lot, just is kind of that world a little bit, right? Elite, democratic, liberal stuff. Yeah. That's how they viewed her anyway. And so I think they were a little shocked by what they saw at the convention. And I, by the way, James, I think Trump has been throwing his advisors under the bus on other fronts too.
Right.
He's doing all the DEI hire stuff about her, and they're saying, don't do that. It alienates moderates, independent suburban women. And then at a rally, Trump joked that he should fire his advisors because he wants to keep up the personal attacks.
Right.
Right. So do his advisors know what to do with Harris's surge?
Not really. I mean, look. The Shane Goldmacher of the New York Times is the guy that really observed what I think has happened. Biden's message about Trump was you have to fear him. He's dangerous. He's going to take us out of NATO. He's going to project 2025. I mean, it was just dark, omnibus stuff. Harris's campaign has figured out, to me, what I've been urging, that mockery is the best way to deal with him. They make fun of him. All right. And to me, mockery is the most effective way to get at him because you're not going to. That was all to no avail. You didn't gain anything. And that transition from fear to mockery, I think, is one of the real big stories of the convention. And they just totally, in the party is really united. I mean, when you have, I don't know, Pramila Jayapal and Liz Cheney in the same coalition, pretty good. Not bad.
Yeah, I mean, there's an anti-MAGA coalition out there. I think the thing that the way they kind of got the balance on, is Trump a buffoon or is he a monster, right? The way they got that.
And they lean toward the buffoon thing, which I think is the better way to deal with it.
And she straddled it nicely, though, too, right? Because she said he's an unserious person, but having him in the White House again would be a catastrophe for the country. So you get both that way.
But a lot of speakers were big on buffoonery, too. I mean, it wasn't...
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it would be a catastrophe, but I've been... This is something that I really believe, that mockery is the greatest form of communication you can come up with against somebody like him.
All right, let me ask you something. As long as you've been doing politics and as long as I've been following it, the Republican attack machine was something that everybody feared. It was sort of the kind of thing where once they get started, they're just going to maul whatever's in its path.
Right.
But it seems to me that attack machine's a little off these days. they're trying to tar her as a cultural liberal and as an elitist and as a friend of criminals and so forth. But it's kind of missing. Why is that? As someone who's been around this stuff a long time, why is it missing?
That's a good question. I'm glad I came to this show. Because you're getting at what's the essence of it. So you have an act. I don't know, vaudeville or something. All right, there's an act. And you go to Scranton, and it really works. Everybody's laughing at your punchlines. Fox has to have the wheel where they keep pushing these issues. And then you go a second time, and it works. And people are laughing, and your nicknames are sticking. And then all of a sudden, it gets stale. And so Fox is desperately trying everything that they can think of. Trump knows when he goes in these rallies that fewer people that go to these things. And so I'm sorry.
We'll cut that out.
So Trump goes and he sees people kind of leaving early. Maybe he sees some empty seats in the upper right-hand balcony. And his answer is he tries harder. He talks louder and he gets more outrageous. But once your act doesn't work, it just gets stale. And I think Fox's act, I went on Sean Hannity during the convention. It was the same thing. I mean, you already know where it's coming. You know how to answer it. They've done something for so long and it's worked every time. And now it kind of doesn't work. And so the answer, what they try to do is go harder, go deeper, try more. And kind of no one cares anymore. I mean, the whole identity left experiment was just a giant goddamn mistake, and everybody knows it was. And Harris has got to, the problem she has, and I think she'll be able to deal with it, is she has to answer for this lunacy of her campaign. Anybody that has ever listened to NPR or the identity left has lived to regret it. That is an absolute 100% rule in American politics.
James, I want to remember, though, when I sent you that Mallory McMorrow video,
all right,
she was kind of woke, and it was pretty damn good, wasn't it?
Well, but that look, it's all presentation. I said Tim Walz, if anything, it's pretty hard to do. He might be even more liberal than I am, but it was never the issues that hurt us. It was the presentation. It was when Senator Mallory stood in that well, she was being human. She wasn't being woke. That's I hate the word woke. Let me say, I'll digress. The first time the word woke was used was by Leadbelly Ledbetter, who was a jazz musician in the 1920s, who was born right outside of Shreveport, I think died in a Houston jail, and said that black people should be woke in their interactions with police in the 1920s. Seemed to me a pretty good idea. And then overeducated whites got a hold of the word and screwed it up for everybody. It's what they always do.
You're saying that a lot of it has to do with tone, if I understand you right.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
So Tim Walz,
precisely.
Tim Walz is someone who has succeeded in the Midwest. Minnesota is Democratic leaning, but it's still the Midwest. He's somebody who's done a lot of quote unquote woke stuff there, and he's done very well politically, and that's because he speaks to people about the stuff from the heart and makes it understandable. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying. You said what I'm trying to say. He doesn't use idiotic phrases like communities of color, which is the most condescending thing I could ever hear from anybody. It is the massive assumption of elite white people that everybody is not white is the same, which is the dumbest freaking thing you can imagine.
Well, Walz is very good at talking about this stuff in common sense language, and and so is Gretchen Whitmer and Tim Walz are successful governors in the Midwest. So is Josh Shapiro. They're able to talk about this stuff, and
what about Andy Bashir?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah,
if I remember right, he actually took a daring stance on some trans stuff.
yes, that's not
But
the problem.
right, he
Okay,
spoke
the
about it as a
problem is not
person.
the issue. It's the NPR presentation. That's the problem. I
Let's talk about the state of the race. In the 538 averages, Harris leads Trump by 3.4 points nationally, 3.6 in Wisconsin, nearly 3 in Michigan, and around 1.5 in Pennsylvania, very close there. She's up a point in Arizona. I think it's clear Harris does have a lead of some kind, but it's still extremely close. Where do you think the race stands now? Is she ahead? Is it tied? What?
So what I can tell you, because I'm glad you asked this. It certainly stands a lot better than it did 5 weeks ago. All right, now she has to win the popular vote somewhere between 2 or 3. And so let's go back and do the history here. 2016, the actual national poll was about as close as polling can get. It probably had Hillary maybe a point and a half higher than she actually did. But what everybody said, you didn't poll in the swing states late, so you didn't catch the Trump surge in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan. So in 2020, in order to cure the defect, everybody went in late in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, and everybody came back with Biden winning by a lot more than he actually did. So it's safe to say that Trump chronically underperforms. We don't know because we didn't poll in 2016 in these.
You mean that
states.
his polling numbers are lower than his actual support?
Absolutely, that was
right. That's what you
absolutely
mean. Okay.
true. It wasn't true in Georgia or even Arizona, but it was certainly true in the big 3. But I'm actually a little more bullish on Harris than I sound on television. And the following reason: number one is she's really gained a lot since she's been there. Secondly, the most underappreciated fact of American politics in this decade, since 2022, since Kansas, the Democrats have not lost an election. Period. Yeah, there's some place in Nebraska we're supposed to lose by 25. We lost by 8, but not anywhere.
Right.
Congressional.
Dobbs,
that's huge.
Right? Dobbs.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
And that's right.
And he doesn't know how to get out of it. Who was saying, well, I appointed the Supreme Court, but I'm the greatest president that women have had. He's not going to win on that at all. And I mean, I don't mean this to be cynical, but that's not where he is. And no one trusts them on the issue. So do I think, so you got to win by somewhere between 2 and 3. Most people say it's closer to 3. And his history was to underpoll, so you have to be scared. However, Dobbs has changed I think has changed the political landscape. The other thing I would say, Greg, is the cat lady comment is one of the more sticky comments I've heard in American politics. People, they just don't forget that.
That's J.D. Vance, everybody.
Yes,
so you
yes. Know. And the thing you have to understand is among females, on the choice question, there's no class, racial, income, education differences. It's pretty consistent all the way up and down the female line on reproductive issues.
Can I ask you something about that, James, while you brought it up? So Harris is actually, in a big surprise to a lot of people, hitting her targets among white voters more or less right now. In places like Pennsylvania, she's at around 1/3 of non-college whites. That's what Biden hit. And if anything, she's got to make up a little more ground with the young people and non-whites. But this is what I wanted to ask you. Some of the polling is striking to me because it seems to me that her ability to hit her target with white voters has got to do with women and non-college women in particular. Dobbs, is that what you think's going on, that she's hitting her targets with whites because of women?
Now, here I'm going to take a little bit of issue with you. In every cycle, we have a fashionable group. Remember, we had soccer moms. We had the activist black women. all right, who perform so much of the yeoman's work in the Democratic Party, and their enthusiasm. I think that the demographic that I'm most interested in are college white males. And they don't, Brownstein, who I think is, probably, he says somebody's the best, but
he is clearly, the best.
Yeah, he's the best. Okay.
He's the best.
Let's just say it. And he went through their attitudes on vaccines, or the attitude, even the college white males, completely different attitudes on reproductive issues, a lot of different things. And I think that her growth opportunity is our demographic. We're never in fashion. Okay, you and I, college white males, are never in fashion. I think we might be. I'm just going to get on a limb. I think we might be the deciding demographic, but we're not. We're losing. I hate the term, but just because everybody uses it, we're not doing as well with males of color as we should do, because Trump has got a little bit of a FU attitude. And there's some appeal there. It's idiotic, but
I got you. Yeah.
It's there. So my call for the fashionable demographic is you and I.
Well, that makes me feel very good. I have to say.
Yeah, you should feel good. You're in my opinion, you stand.
I feel like I matter.
American fault. Yeah, you actually matter.
No
one wants to talk about. How many articles you see about? How many articles you see about? Well, I'm in a diner. I'm talking to blue collar white males. I'm in a diner and I'm talking to this. And I'm in a, I'm talking to black voters. I'm talking to this and that. Whoever goes in the freaking, I guess we wouldn't be in a diner, wherever we would be, in a salad bar line or whatever college white males are in.
Right, at a Panera near a suburban office park with a lot of medical services.
Yeah, or like me, going back and forth between the doctor and the dentist, which all you do at my age.
So James, why do you think she's got growth opportunity with college-educated white males?
Well, they just have entirely different cultural experience than non-college white. Now, there's a lot of junior college and how you allocate this. I know all that shit. Don't bother me with it, all right? They have college white males have different views than non-college white males. And they mostly align with Harris, and I think Walt helps. I really do. Understand, this is what I'm trying to say. Males are 48% of the electorate. Whites are close to 70. Where is this jackass strategy that we're going to not pay attention to males or whites? It's idiotic. It's idiotic.
They're aware of this, right? They know
that yes. Of course they are. That's why they pick Walt. And I give them credit. I give them enormous credit for not listening to this horse shit of this is the fashionable thing. That this is all of this. The Harris people understood that. And she understood it. And it became this sort of vogue thing, and everybody forgot that males vote, and no one wanted to say that whites vote. Actually, they both vote, and they both vote pretty good, and particularly college males vote pretty high proportion.
Let me see if I understand you. I think what you're saying here, right, is that someone like Tim Walz and the Harris camp knows this, you think, is very good at reaching a certain type of white male college-educated voter who isn't necessarily really that liberal. We're talking about people in Wisconsin, maybe in the suburbs of Wisconsin, or the suburbs of Milwaukee, suburbs of Detroit, and maybe in the Sun Belt too, where whites are a little more moderate, right? Is that what you're talking about? That type of white male college-educated voter?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. People that believe in vaccines, the people that have wives, daughters, mothers, which we all do, or we all have wives, we all have mothers for sure. Most of us have wives and So a lot of us have children. And their attitudes are really different than non-college white males. That's my general point. And I think and Trump has become more offensive to them as we get further along down the line. And so I think there's real growth opportunity there.
To connect two of your points, maybe Dobbs has something to do with that. Maybe there's a white male, college-educated white male pro Harris vote in reaction to Dobbs.
So I have daughters. I'm older, but had children late. But they're like, Daddy, they're not going to tell me what to do with my body. All right? So your daughter says something like that, and you go, oh, yeah. You know, you in that compound that by the fact of X gazillion, and you sort of see where you're at.
Right. In other words, they're really voting in the interests of what they perceive are their wives, their daughters. And
that by nature, the attitudes on vaccines, attitudes on reproductive rights, attitudes on a lot of things are vastly different among white males based on education.
Fascinating idea. Well, let me ask you this again, to go back to something you've seen up close as the Republican attack machine and what it does to Democrats at times. As you and others have said, one big question is whether Harris can establish in the minds of middle-class America that she's one of you, she understands your needs and problems, is on your side, against $500 million in GOP ads painting her as an alien, an other, a cultural elitist. At the convention, she stressed her upbringing mostly by a single mom, and I was really struck by the moment where she talked about the excitement of buying their first home. All that bio stuff aimed right at the middle class. The story is, through hard work, she got her foothold in there. Her family got their foothold in the middle class. How do you think this effort to burnish her, middle class cred is going so far? How's that going?
Well, they're going to try to knock her out of that. And they're going to say her parents were Berkeley professors, and she's a coastal San Francisco elite. She can say anything she wants, but you know who she is. She's, ambitious, Willie Brown, you name it. It's all coming, all right? And I thought she did a good job in the convention. And I'm not, again, we're accustomed to what they do working. I don't think it doesn't hit with the same, and I've said this before and I'll say it again. The most thunderous sound in all of American politics is the sound of a turning page. And if she says it's time to go beyond this, I'm thinking about 2028, he's thinking about 2018, I think she's going to win. I really do. And I understand the underlying problems she has and Trump's appeal to a certain demographic. But I got to say, right now, I'd much rather be us than him.
Sounds like you think Trump's in trouble. Is that right?
I do. I kind of do, because his normal stuff doesn't resonate like it used to. In Fox's normal stuff, it was actually kind of scary, and you'd see it, and it sounded effective. And we were accustomed to it being effective, and it just doesn't have the same ring now. The stale act.
It's a different country than it was in even 2016, and especially since 1992 when you dealt with this stuff head on, isn't it? Much more diverse country, more educated country, which goes to your point about college-educated white males. There are more educated whites out there. White America is a different place than it was in 92, right?
I think in 92, it was, I want to say, around 90, maybe a little under, plus or minus 2% of the people voted were white. All right, that's not the case anymore, at all close to it. But still, 70% of the people that are going to vote are white. 48 are going to be males.
They're just more educated.
Yes, a little more educated, but at the core, misogyny and racism still play big in American politics. Don't kid yourself. We haven't moved beyond that just yet.
No, that's true. 100%. And they're betting on that in a big way, right?
In a big way.
What's Harris's path for the Electoral College? I mean, it's clear that one of the big things that has changed since Biden was pushed out is that the Sun Belt is really in play big time. She has more paths. Do you just expect it to be done in the? Do you expect her victory if she's going to win? Is it going to come in the three blue wall states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, or is she going to open up? Is she going to win Arizona? I mean, North Carolina's in play now, I think. Don't you think?
So I do. So I think the blue wall states an insurance policy.
Okay.
That's if all hell breaks loose, those three you still need to. I don't like to make predictions about elections, but I'll make one. I'll make two. Harris gets a higher percent in North Carolina than Georgia. And she gets a higher percent in Florida than Texas. I'm not saying she's going to win both. I'm not saying she's going to lose both. And I'm saying that I think the biggest underappreciated story today is Florida is much more in play than people think.
Can you tell me why that is? I mean, this is Trump's...
I'll tell you why it is. Okay. First of all, remember Bill Nelson lost by, 2,000 votes. And we had a divisive primaries, and Charlie Crist was not a very strong candidate, to say the least. And so we have in Florida, on the ballot, you have the abortion referendum, you have the weed referendum. And the weed people make a lot of money, and they have a big turnout machine, and they like to turn out, quote, traditional Democratic constituencies, unquote. And number three, the most underappreciated issue in American politics is the cost of insurance, particularly homeowners insurance, particularly in Florida. And there's a near revolt down there. So I think the confluence of that, and we didn't have a primary. I'll give a lot of credit to Nikki Fried, who's the chairman of the Democratic Party in Florida. And if you look, they got slaughtered in these school board races.
I thought that was huge.
Huge. Very underappreciated.
You
Slaughtered.
may be right that wokeness is a liability, but I'll tell you what, right-wing culture warring is also a loser.
I'd take woke every day before I take Moms for Liberty. I'd go into this fight. I don't think it's a binary choice, but that's and by the way, the Democrats have moved beyond identity politics. Everybody knows it was a giant mistake. Okay, no one even wants to talk about it anymore. And I keep telling friends of mine who are in this, let it go. You won. You don't need to spike the ball. Just move on.
So just tell me why you think right-wing culture warring is a loser. I'm very interested in that. And it is a big tell that Ron DeSantis lost. His candidates got routed. And by the way, Moms for Liberty candidates got routed across the country too. Why is that happening? Why is that happening?
You remember that scene in Field of Dreams with Amy Madigan? And she said, "You Nazi cow," where they were trying to ban some book. And people instinctively don't like book banning. And they became, that became their image. And of course, every time they turn around, one of them was like that woman that founder in Florida and the chairman of Florida Republican Party were having piles they were jumping in, trying to get, other people to, what I'm saying. And another one slugged somebody, another one got arrested. And people don't like that. They know these people that show up at these school board meetings, and they just don't like that. They're like, it's not a big, people recoil against it. They just do.
Right. The right has become the busybodies, and they're poking into everybody's business.
Absolutely.
It's all creepy stuff. I thought Chris Murphy called it creepy early on, and I think that's how people read it.
I do too, and I think that they don't have they can't pull back. That Trump is trying to say I'm the best women ever had. No, I'm for. And he's caught because remember he has to vote in this abortion referendum in Florida, and he won't say how he's going to vote. And Harris should say, when you tell us how you're going to vote, we'll let you have whatever microphone you want.
I think the Clinton campaign in '92 talked about going on offense every day. What I see from the Harris campaign is something like that, going on offense every day.
You know, I love to be critical of campaigns. It's nothing that the old retired, you watch the NFL and, they held the ball too long in the pocket. All right. I haven't seen anything, honestly, I'm sure I will, that I would be really critical about so far. It's amazing how they've put together, was it July 21st, the date that he dropped out? And they've put together a convention. They've picked a running mate. They've kind of merged two staffs, two different coaches together. I mean, I have to give them high marks. I just do.
What's your nightmare scenario? What do you worry about? What could go wrong for Harris now, specifically?
She has an ineffective answer for 2018, which was a disaster, which is not good.
What do you mean? You mean her move to the left?
Her really moved to the left in the primaries.
You mean 2019?
Right. Leading up to the 2020 primaries.
Okay.
It was bad. And she needs an overarching answer to place all that in context. I think she will have one. That's the number one thing that worries me. And they are, they're dangerous. They're like they're hit. They were knocked off their balance. They're still off balance, but they'll get it back.
You mean the Republicans and Trump?
Yes, I'm talking about the Trump people more. I mean, they confused. They're dazed. They were, and I thought that the campaign that he had a more professional campaign this time than he did in 16 or 20. The fact that they were totally unprepared for this is, I think, a real balk against them, because anybody knew on July 10th that Biden wasn't going to survive. You could see the tea leaves were coming in big time. And I think it was July 7th. I wrote at times, he's just not going to be the nominee. Just mark my word, it's not going to happen. I wouldn't have said that in the opening line in the New York Times op-ed piece if I didn't think it was right. Just kind of sticking.
You got that right, James. So let me ask you this. You just said that the Trump campaign is dazed, confused, off balance. Is Trump in trouble, and does he know that?
Yes and yes. He has like shark-like survival instinct. And he knows that he's not having the same effect as he used to. He knows that Harris has become what he's always wanted to be, is the kind of hot item. He does. And he's not the new kid on the block anymore. And he's struggling to regain that. But he like I say, he has very primitive survival skills. And I think this is something that, and it's driving him crazy.
Right. I think what you're saying is he's in deep trouble and is aware of it.
He is, and he's aware of it. And now how he gets out of it, or can he get out of it, I don't know.
James, thanks so much for coming on with us today.
All right, Greg. All right. For you, I'll do anything.
You've been listening to The Daily Blast with me, your host, Greg Sargent. The Daily Blast is a New Republic podcast and is produced by Riley Fessler on the DSR Network.